Hey, everybody, welcome again. I have the distinct pleasure of talking with Tracey Thompson today, a fellow writer who found his way to his passion later in life. And that's something that I think is very resonant with a lot of people that are going to be watching this. And it's a story about how to can take an unconventional approach to writing and learning that there isn't one right timeline for becoming who you are. In fact, I've become who I am a couple different times, as I peel back the layers. So we're going to explore that to him and maybe get into some of the people that helped him along the way. You know, people in his life, his wife, therapist, friends, whomever finds their way into the conversation. So let's get started with that. Tracy, man, it's great to meet you.
Nice meeting you as well. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I know we're going to get a lot of good stuff out of our conversation here. So tell me how you kind of found your way to your passion, because you were clearly doing some things in the meantime. And what kind of was that process like? Did you find yourself kind of struggling, meandering, being unclear? Why am I doing this? I don't really care about this.
Well, I've always liked writing ever since I was a kid. I'm sure you'll hear that from a lot of writers. I had children really early in my life, so any ability to pursue that kind of was put to the side because I had to provide for them. Um, and several years down the line, I finally had some more time and I had a great idea pop into my head thanks to one of my daughters just saying something random. And I literally just grabbed a laptop, sat down, and started writing. No outline, no way forward other than what I felt was organic as I started writing it. And I was actually editing that book again today, and I just sit and I laugh. I laugh the whole way through it, and it has the darkest humor. And some people look at me cross-eyed after they read it, but I love that, and I don't think I would have been able to have that sense of humor and that outlook on this if I would have written it earlier in life.
Well, first question is, what was the comment your daughter made?
Oh, she was talking about messing around with when she was real little, messing around with an electrical outlet and the possibility of electrocuting herself.
It's interesting the places where our minds can find stories.
Yes, yes.
Before you sat down and wrote the book, were you writing down little quotes here or ideas? Were you somehow kind of not at
No,
all? It was
I
just non-existent in your life.
correct. I'm a passionate reader. I've always liked the idea of writing, and I tried to write a couple books or even just short stories here and there, but nothing really took off. It didn't resonate with me enough to keep pushing it. But for some reason, this idea just really stuck in my head, and I had to get it out or I was going to explode.
Wow, one of those, huh?
Yes.
I'm just getting ready to release my first novel. I've written six other books that are mostly nonfiction, and it came upon me the same way. I was walking through the nursery with my wife, who loves plants and flowers, and I remembered an article I read about, if you talk to plants, it helps them grow. And I thought, what if the reverse were true? What if the plants could take care of us and help us grow? And boom, I went home and started typing, and now this is coming out. And I told myself for the longest time that I can't write fiction. And I
Oh,
had all these misunderstandings about what it meant to write fiction, that it had to be from start to finish. There was this recipe. And what I ultimately realized is, being the scatterbrained ADHD I am, it's that it's like a bunch of puzzle pieces before me. This idea here, that idea there. And then I find a way to make them all connect.
isn't that a great feeling when you're done too? I think it's fantastic. And I would much rather write fiction than nonfiction. Nonfiction requires way too much work and research. I would rather make it up. I'd rather make it up as I went and bend the world to my will as opposed to having to be like dead on with the science or the events that happen at a certain point in time.
Yeah, you know, having gotten my degree in social work with all of those endless citations, and it had to
Ugh.
be just right. And you'd get dinged if the citation was right. Who cares about the rest of it?
Yeah.
You know, the citation was like the holy grail of the entire paper. But I'm totally with you. There's so much fun in just letting your mind say, what if I made the character do this? Or
Hmm.
what if they came across this kind of person? And you get to create, in your case, you're talking about kind of darker humor. And I'm a big fan of that. My sons and I love the dark humor comedians. Do you get a sense of what drew you to that?
Oh, I've always been sarcastic and cynical. And I just started finding dark humor things funny, especially if other people didn't find it funny. I was all over it. I thought it was fantastic and I thought it was great. A funny little story that kind of leads to that or shows that I had that when I was young. I was probably, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, something like that. And my mom in the car always listened to love songs. It was nonstop love songs. And I asked her one day, I said, are all songs about love? Like, isn't there anything else? And she said, well, there is, but I mean, what do you want to hear? Songs about war and death and just bad things happening?
Well, if that's
Yeah,
not the alternative,
yeah, I do want to listen to that.
there's
She
all
just
kinds
looked
of
at me like
stuff
I
in
grew a second
between.
head.
I think that's was mom kind of black and white in the thinking?
No, I think she was just trying to push an extreme so that I would, gravitate more towards what she was listening to. Because, if you throw the exact opposite out there and it comes off as, something very negative, nobody's going to choose that, right? Well, I did. I love it. I love every second of it.
I look at me and my siblings and some of the people that I'm friends with, and it's very clear that life lands with us in very different ways.
Hmm.
You know, we have our own experiences, our own decisions about what those experiences mean. And there was a time in my life where I was just defensive and resentful and bitter. I had so much going on that I just didn't process, didn't make peace with. Now, as you mentioned earlier, at a much older age, I'm 56 now, I don't think I would have had the discipline to write a novel until now. And seeing the things that came out of it were clearly a product of perceptions I had about the way the world worked, how relationships operate. And one thing I'm sure you discovered with all the reading you do, that stuff is like it creates this fertile garden in your head of different ideas to pull from. And it helps stimulate our own capacity for storytelling. Is that what you find?
Yeah, absolutely. And those past experiences and where your head is at the time that you write it too will
Mhm.
really reflect on the story, how the characters interact, even the types of characters that you throw in it. The first one that I wrote, even though I was in a loving relationship at the time, I had had a bad divorce, and a lot of my bitterness and anger and frustration at that really came out in the first story. And one of the main characters is always just mentally dumping on his wife, just constantly doing it in his own mind. And I think it was a reflection of how I had felt about my first relationship.
Did you find it to be therapeutic to do that?
Yes. And I still find it therapeutic when I read back through it and just read the stuff that I have him saying or thinking, and I just laugh. I just laugh knowing I'm probably the only one who would laugh at it, and I don't care. I want other people to like what I'm writing, but I write it for myself, and I write it so that I'm amused and I like the storyline. And then if everyone else does, great. I think that's awesome.
I love that you say that because there are differing opinions on this, of course. Some folks say, well, you've got to read, you got to write for the audience. So it's got to be something the audience wants to read. And I don't know how to do that to save my life. I can't
Mm-mm.
read people's minds. And to me, that's just another form of people pleasing. You know, I don't want to do that.
with the book that I've just published, I had it beta read first just to get an opinion before I decided if I wanted to put a bunch of money into editing and marketing and all that fun stuff. And the comments, I got really positive feedback, but they're like, well, you need to do it this way and you need to do it that way because that's how it's done. Well, you can't tell me how something is done because I will do the exact opposite of that. Like I throw tropes out the window, I will do the exact opposite of tropes. I don't like hearing that, that's the way it's always done or that's the way it works best. I'm going to find another way to do it and I'm going to find a way to make it successful.
Imagine how boring Hollywood and stuff like that would be if they were just cookie cutter directors just following the same formula every single time.
And you
And
can
that,
find those. You can find those, and I turn them off. I can't stand them.
yeah, the ones that as soon as it becomes predictable, okay, we're following a formula here. But yeah, I'm right with you. It's got to be what moves you. You tell the story you want to tell it, and the characters are who they are. You try and shove them into a box, it's no longer your story.
Exactly. And I'm always entertained by what my characters do because I don't know what they're going to do ahead of time. I don't know. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry, I'm a big nerd,
Oh
but
no, no, my wife is totally there with you.
well, good. I like her already. I play a lot of that, and I'm the one who runs the campaign. So I'm used to just putting the characters in a situation and see what they do to figure it out. I do the same thing in my writing. I put her I like in the book that I just wrote, main character, her name is Alexandra. She's super sassy. I would put her in a situation and then just watch as she pushed her way through it with all of her aggression and anger and her not putting up with anybody's crap. And I would just laugh. I would laugh and just be so surprised at the things that she would end up doing. And I still know that sounds crazy because I'm controlling it in quotes, but some part of my mind that I'm not really controlling is the one that's having her do all these things, and I'm just along for the ride typing it out.
A lot of it, and I imagine you've experienced this too. It just feels like play.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's
I, I,
that's one of the best things. But you're not writing an English paper, where you have to write the paragraphs perfectly in perfect sentences and whatever. And that,
no,
that kind of freedom is really something.
I completely agree. When I first write, I am not like if you were to go through and like an English teacher was to check the grammar, she would probably, slap my hands with a ruler because it's bad. It's really bad, but I just need to get the thoughts and the ideas and the story out. And then once it's out, I can go and I can tweak it and I can polish it and I can have someone else take a look at it and make those corrections. But I need to get the life of the story on the paper and work with it from there.
That is something so few new writers really understand. They think you need to edit as you go. And it's like pinching off the hose. The flow stops when you do that. It's so important to get the ideas down, who the character is, what their values are, what motivates them, the situation, like you say, what's the overarching situation they're in. And things don't even have to be in order. Figure that out later. Just get the
Yeah,
ideas down, right?
exactly. And it's fun to play around with it like that too. I wrote the entire book, had it tested, and then I went and added an entire prologue for it. And I've had so many people tell me that's their favorite part of the book. I don't know if that's good or bad, but they tell me they like it, but that was their favorite part of it.
What did you do with the prologue?
I ended up kind of like telling the story of how the world became the dystopian world that it is, but it's told by a lunatic essentially, and what he's doing to cause the end of the world. And it just really captures your attention while giving you past history and the science behind what's going on.
Wow. I can see that providing some amazing context.
I liked it when it was done. I was a little surprised because I wrote it grudgingly because you get done with your book, you're like, oh, it's the best book ever. And then, people give you some criticisms and when you go to make those changes, you're not happy about it. But when I was done, I was very, very happy with it.
My My the new book that I just wrote, I had that same thing going into it. Oh, it's perfect. People are going to know exactly what I'm hinting at. They're going to know it. They're going to understand it like I understand it. And then my editor's like, why did where did this come from? This just came out of nowhere. You have to explain earlier why this is happening, or we need to have more backstory on this person. We don't understand why they're talking like this. And I was very humbled by the process.
Same. I have the same issue. I don't like to spell things out. I want the reader to figure it out as they go. But I was doing too much of that to the point where it just got confusing. So I had to spell some of that out, and then I left some of the juicier bits for them to figure out as they went.
One thing to anybody who wants to write it, say, understand that you have blind spots. You're very close to your story. Everything is filtered through our own perception, so we don't understand what other people are missing, and we totally don't miss. We don't understand what we're missing.
Oh,
So, like
exactly.
the beta readers, it sounds like you used them much earlier in the process, even than I did.
When
Which
did you use them?
I had a pretty polished end copy. You know, it wasn't the final edited draft, but I had done a whole lot of editing before I send it off to anybody, sentence structure and paragraph structure. But if I heard you correctly, yours was just, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It was still pretty bare bones. Is that fair to say?
No, I would have told you to publish it. I would have absolutely told you to publish it. And then after I got that, like you said, it was humbling. It kind of slapped me back. And I was almost to the point where I don't even want to move forward with publishing this because based on their comments, it's a pile of crap. But then fortunately, they actually gave me scores as like overall story and rereadability and plot line and this and that. And they were all, most of them, I should say, were above eights. I think I had one in the sevens. And to me, being able to quantify it like that told me, okay, it's good, it just needs a lot more work. And having a good editor, I mean, if you shouldn't have published a book without a good editor. You're not doing yourself any favors.
Agreed. I see people in writers groups now on Facebook trying to get around using the editor. How do I edit this myself? And as much as AI is touted these days, it does not do the same quality editing as human eyes do.
No, because it's not going to get, it doesn't pick up enough of the tone and it doesn't feel for that behind the scenes stuff that you have going on. And you can only get that from a human.
But speaking of actually writing the story, did you find that there were any points, maybe emotional scenes, where you found it difficult to step into the character's experience because it was a difficult emotion for you?
Um, I'm going to say no. Mind you, I finished writing it, not the editing it, but I finished writing it in 2020. So it's been a while, but I don't remember having that experience. I did write her with a lot of my character traits of being sarcastic and cynical, even
Right, what you know,
selfish.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I was able to put myself in the majority of those situations without much trouble. And then the ones where it was borderline, I just had to stop and think about it. Like, how would this actually play out if this was happening? And I wrote it. And if I didn't like it, I tweaked it.
Uh, just to backtrack a little bit about finding your passion later in life, because there are so many people out there that would think, oh, that's long gone. Maybe if I was younger, I would have done it. But now I'm too old. I just need to accept that, I'll never have my passion or whatever. And folks like you completely contradict that thinking. It's never too late to start. I've read stories about 80-year-olds who go to college to get their degree.
Yeah,
They got
they're
really nothing
nuts.
else. They got nothing else to do. I
Yeah,
don't
they're
know.
nuts. I went back to college, I think, in my early 30s, and that was enough for me. Like I can't imagine doing that 50 years later.
I I barely have the memory now.
Oh,
If
exactly.
I tried to go to college now, I'd be screwed.
Exactly.
Let alone when I'm 80.
I read an article one time that and no one quote me on this because I don't know how accurate it is, but I think Samuel L. Jackson like did his first movie at like 46, something like that, and he's prolific now. So that gave me a little motivation to be like, you're not too old, you can still do this. Even it may turn out to be a new career for you. It may not. It may just be a hobby, but do it, enjoy it. You only have one life to try it.
Even if it doesn't become a moneymaker, which would be really nice, just what it does for you to go through that process, the creativity, the discovering different ways of looking at things, connecting dots in unique ways. And it can just help you as a person, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a big confidence booster when it was done because I could say I'd written a book. And a lot more people can say that than I ever would have thought, but I've done it. And that's what it's important is that was something that was a goal of mine when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And I've done
Remember, I first discovered my capacity for rhyme and rhythm and poetry when I was like in fifth grade. And I don't know when I developed this dream of someday I'm going to be a writer who can support myself exclusively with writing. Not there yet, but it's still something I want to do. I still want to find a way to do it.
and there's still
And
time.
in your case, because you had developed this dream when you were younger, but you didn't realize it until later in life. Did you feel unmoored in the meantime?
I felt distracted. I just had too many other things going on between, kids and work, and just trying to make sure that they were getting the best that they could, to put them in a good position. And then once I knew that there wasn't much else I could do, and that they were their own people, and I could help steer them in certain terms, but I wasn't controlling their lives. It gave me time to realize I have things that I want to do for myself too. And that's when I took advantage of that.
And then at some point, your daughter made that comment and your brain ran with it.
Oh yeah, it
One
did.
thing I one thing I can't say enough is even if you don't think the idea is going to turn into much, write it down anyway. And then maybe come back and revisit it from time to time and see if new things start firing and you want to add to it. But just because you can't think of this start to finish, how this whole thing is going to go, doesn't mean you don't have a story.
I agree. I have 4 to 5 books that I've started that I don't know, they might be 14 to 50 pages in, and they're sitting in the cloud, just waiting for me to revisit them, to see if it sparks something, or maybe it'll give me an idea even towards something else, but it's still there. I'm not going to get rid of it because I might end up pursuing it at some point. And I just like the fact that I, even might not have finished it, but I started to create something.
You hear about the professional writers these days who have these disciplines of writing 4,000 words every day, 7 days a week. That ain't me.
No.
And I appreciate that they can do that, but that is not me.
No, the one I'm working on right now, I probably haven't put fresh words to it in 3 or 4 weeks. One, because I just kind of got burned out on it. I was working on it constantly every spare second that I had. And then also, I have other things going on in life.
Yeah, and that's the key there. I mean, you can come and go to the project. It isn't one of those things like you're building a deck on the house and you got to do it weather permitting and there's a time crunch. You might take a couple months off because life happens and you need to attend to those things. And then maybe you have your feet up on enjoying the park or the weather and suddenly something hits you and you go right back to it. oh, that would work great with this character in that scene. And maybe it's a couple chapters ahead. Okay, write it out, have it available, put the
I think it,
pieces together.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think it's great that you brought that up. Some of my best ideas for whatever I'm writing at the time have been when I've put it down. And just because I've put it down and I'm not writing doesn't mean I'm not thinking about it. I'm usually thinking about it constantly. And what I've already put down on paper, my ideas for it moving forward. And sometimes that'll change. And it's because something sparks or something relates to what I'm doing, or maybe I just have a thought. We were flying into Georgia for vacation, and I'm on the plane with nothing to do. And I started thinking about the one that I'd started, and it was probably 6 months after I'd started it and put it down for a little bit. And I started having all these ideas. As soon as we got our rental car, I made her stop at a store so I could buy a notebook and some pens and just start writing while we were driving to our hotel so that I wouldn't lose the ideas.
One thing I think you've said a couple times is this, that when your mind isn't occupied, you're in a situation, there's not much to do. You're not solving any problems and you're not thinking about anything in particular. And then it pops right in.
I came up with the entire idea for the book that I just published while I was mowing the lawn
Yeah.
because I had to mow, it took me like 3 hours to mow my lawn at the time. So I had plenty of time to think and it popped in my head. And as soon as I was done mowing, I ran in the house and started writing.
It's one of the reasons, the old cliche is your best ideas come to you in the shower or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because the shower, it's pretty rote. There's not a whole lot of critical thinking that happens during the shower. And because your mind is finally quiet enough, other things can start happening. So oftentimes it's when your nose is not to the grindstone that you get some of your better ideas. So go for a walk, just look at go mow your lawn, do something that doesn't require a whole lot of thinking and problem solving, and your mind finds opportunities to play in those
It
situations, right?
it does. It does. And my big thing is never stop thinking about the work that you're trying to put out and just look at it from different points of view and think about what would make it interesting or what scenarios would be interesting. Some of what I've come up with wasn't even part of my plot line, but I liked it so much I found a way to make it fit, and I just enjoy it when I get to that part when I'm reading it.
And so many things that you could share to the burgeoning writer late in life. Is there one piece of advice you'd give someone to avoid discouragement so that it doesn't knock them down?
Yeah, don't listen to anybody else until you're done writing it. You write it how you want to write it and then solicit your feedback. If I had listened to everything, all the input from people around me, I probably wouldn't have finished writing anything because my sense of humor is a little different than my peer group or my family group. But once it was done and they could read the entire thing and see the big picture, then I got the positive feedback.
That is so important. My son is starting to write a sci-fi novel, and he comes to me with every page. Read this. I said, I don't want to read it. Keep writing it, because if I read it, I'm inclined to stick my nose in it, and I don't want to inform his story. And I tell him that I'm too inclined to say something, so just keep writing.
I have
And
a
I'm
hard
going,
time I have a hard time following that advice because I do like feedback, especially if I've written a scenario or a scene that was hard for me to write. Um, and I want to make sure that whoever is going to be reading it grasps it the way that I want them to. So I do have a hard time not soliciting feedback. But if you start getting that negative feedback, just stop listening, stop asking for it.
yeah, it's It's one person's idea of what it should be. I mean, even the most best-selling books of all time have their one-star reviews.
Yes.
So
Yep.
just because somebody poo-poos on it, no matter how highly esteemed you hold them, it's still their perspective. They might not be your audience. So it's important to go out there and get a bunch of different eyeballs on it.
Exactly. I agree completely.
I love your story, Tracy. I love the fact that you found writing and your approach to it, is so much like forget the naysayers. Write what you want to write. Put your heart into it. Tell your story. Don't worry about whether people are going to approve or think it's appropriate, because it's none of their business, right?
Exactly. It's the end result that matters.
Amen. Well, I'm going to make sure that I have links to your books so that people can find them and explore the creativity that you've discovered and hopefully be inspired to embrace their own. So thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. It was fun talking with you.
Likewise, man. Take care.
You too.